family home evening show
with the Bad Mormons.
Mandi,
Charlotte.
We like to drink wine.
Like finish each other's sentences.
Like a lot. Like probably way too much.
Listen, it's better than whiskey.
Half of my body weight has got to be caused by this podcast.
Listen, will my weight loss surgery be covered as a tax write-off for the show? I got nothing.
That's a good question. We should talk to FHE Bad Mormons corporate and see what our health coverage looks like.
That'd be nice.
So, hi.
Hey there.
If you, internet listener, are just tuning in for the first time,
sorry.
Boy, are you in for a treat. This is going to be the best show we've ever done. Right?
Right. It's 100% a fact. It is the best show on the internet.
I would even go so far as to say 1,000% right.
My dad says so. I'm just kidding. My dad doesn't listen to this crap.
Jesus Christ, you scared me. Fuck. So, let's see. Boy, we have a lot to talk about this week.
There's a lot happening. Do you want to start off by saying what we're drinking?
Sure, yes. This is a bottle
of duck horn
from Napa Valley.
Cheers.
Which is good. I think it's a little overrated myself.
Yeah, I mean, I don't hate it.
It's good.
I definitely, I was over at Nick's in San Clemente having a nice dinner. And normally, BT Dubs, for those who live locally, you can go to Nick's and bring your first bottle of wine with no corkage fee. So I like to go get a martini and then open the wine. But this time I didn't do that because I didn't know we were going. And I got a glass of the duck horn, and it's like $18. And it was good.
It's good.
It was the best glass of red that you could get by the glass and not have to get a bottle. And I was like, because, it was that or Salmon Creek or some crap. And I'm like, I can't. Thanks, Mandi, for ruining this for me. I used to drink the shittiest wine and not give a fuck. Well, Carlo Rossi, game fucking on.
Ooh, no.
No, actually, I've never drank.
Boone's Farm? Was that your jam?
I lie. I did have some standards. Cooks off the table. Andre, I'm sure I've told this story before, but we were playing croquet. It was one of the very few days in Bellingham that the sun was out and we were out playing lawn games, and I said, I'm going to go get us some champagne at the corner market around the corner from Nate and Janelle's house. So it was a little bit of a walk, but not too far. And they just said, whatever you do, Charlotte, do not bring cooks. And I looked back and just such how dare you? I would never bring you cooked champagne. That is just disgraceful. You know what I brought back?
I sure do, but why don't you tell the whole internet?
Andre, I didn't know. I'd never had it before. I didn't know you could get worse than cooks. You can. It's called Andre.
That reminds me of a Halloween party we had in Bellingham where we bought bottles of Cristalino champagne at the co-op and just blocked out the INO, so we're pretending it was Cristal. Because we're huge nerds.
Yeah, you are. I'm balling, bitch.
You know who is not huge nerds, actually, and the fucking coolest people on the planet?
Our patrons.
Our motherfucking patrons.
Shout out to you guys.
Hey, guys. What's up?
Hey, best friends.
Thanks for listening to our show.
Thanks for being awesome.
Also, shout out to a couple people who want to be patrons but can't afford it, that interact and help us out in other ways.
If you can't afford to be a patron, or you just, would rather spend that money on something else, totally 100% cool with you. Thank you for engaging on our social media. It really helps our algorithm, which helps us get put into other people's feeds so more people can know about us.
Exactly.
So even if you look at it and you're like, oh, I don't know what I'd say, just say something stupid, and we will respond with gifts for days.
Drop some emojis. Just drop a fire, Just a fire. That's all you need to do.
Maybe the horns sign from the hands,
heavy metal.
Heavy metal, yeah.
We have a special treat coming. I just got a message today. I'm not going to spoil it for you because you don't know what's happening.
Because I'm not in charge.
Because you're not in charge of the social media, but it's going to be cool.
Oh, sweet. I love things.
I know you do. You're going to really like this one.
Oh, I'm excited.
I will just drop one little hint. It has to do with all the things you failed to do when you were in Logan a couple weeks back. And we'll leave it at that.
I have some ideas.
I don't think I have anything to repent for, do you?
I mean, just my whole life in general, but yeah, no, I think I'm good.
Okay, well, I've made an executive decision this week that we're going to skip Mormon Corner and we're going to turn it into welcome to the Handmaid's Tale corner.
Oh, yeah.
Because
no,
we
just
need to get right fucking into this.
Holy Gilead. So my client earlier just said, holy Gilead. I thought she was going to say holy fuck, was like the face she was making. She said, holy Gilead. Mm-hmm. I cannot believe what is going on in Texas.
Mm-hmm. Well, okay. So let's just start out by saying, if you haven't heard, if you've been living under a rock for the past 3 days, Texas has enacted a law called the Fetal Heartbeat Law, which bans anyone from getting an abortion, any woman from getting an abortion, let's call it like it is, after 6 weeks. So generally a person finds out that they're pregnant around 11 or 12 weeks, right? So this is double the time when you would even have any inkling that you were pregnant at all. So thereby effectively banning abortions
unless
completely.
You're actively trying to get pregnant, like maybe you might know at 6 weeks, but that's because you're constantly checking because you're hoping that you're fucking pregnant. Normal people who have on birth control or, even not, they don't want to be pregnant, aren't checking every fucking 5 minutes to make sure they're fucking pregnant or not.
Exactly. So there's a lot of stuff to unpack around this, but that's basically what's happening. And this law went all the way up to the Supreme Court. And basically, anybody who's been paying attention for the past 4 years, we've been watching the groundwork.
5 years.
5 years. We've been watching the groundwork be laid.
No, 6 years.
Say it. Finish it.
I was just saying, so when Obama couldn't put in his Supreme Justice because it was an election year. So, this isn't even just Trump. This was all the way back to Mitch McConnell when Obama was going out. So
yeah, well, I'm not even talking about just placing a Supreme Court
Well, I'm just
nominee.
saying we're going all the way back to what's completely fucking us right now.
Yeah. Well, what I was going to say was that we've been watching the groundwork be laid for the shit show that's happening right now, unfolding before our eyes. We've been watching them lay down the groundwork for years and years. Okay, we'll say 7 years or whatever. 6 years. So one of the things being the ultra uber conservative justices who have been appointed, not elected, appointed to the Supreme Court, right?
Right.
That's one part of it. Back in July, you might remember, Texas was at the forefront of the news for creating the most oppressive voter suppression laws in the country. Right. And they already had really fucking hardcore voting laws. Now back then they were like, okay, let's get ready for this, and they made it pretty much really, really difficult to vote. They made the penalties for people helping others to vote incredibly stiff.
I get it, but I don't get it.
Yeah, I'll go through it, but just to lay out the framework of what we're talking about, there's that, and then there's the protections that they have for poll watchers, which is another way of intimidating voters. So they've basically made it real easy for people to intimidate voters at the polls. And they've made it pretty much impossible to not vote at the polls. So all those things combined, there's probably more too. I have a shit ton of notes written down, and it's kind of like I'm getting all worked up, and they're kind of all blurring together. But so the groundwork is there, right? And then one of the other pieces of this law, it's not only that you can't get an abortion after 6 weeks, it basically enables any citizen, anywhere, to file a civil lawsuit against anybody who helps somebody get an abortion. And if that civil case is successful and they win it, they get a $10,000 reward from the state of Texas.
It's so incredibly fucked up.
Isn't it? It's like, how the fuck is this legal? And it would be one thing if it was just out of the blue. But like I said, they've been laying the path for this to happen for years.
So when my client was telling me this, because I am one of the people who live under a rock, I don't try to pay attention to Twitter or the news anymore. It's just, I've gotten to the point where it upsets me. Mm-hmm. So I try to not, but I still hear about it from you and other people. And my client was telling me about this, and I was like, oh, come on, that's so fucked up. And she's just like, the way she had explained it, so I don't know if she read it wrong or what, but she's just like, you didn't have to sue them. You could just turn in your neighbors. You just turn them in, and if you'll get a $10,000 reward if there's merit to it or whatever. You don't even have to get a lawyer to sue anybody. You just you call an 800 number and turn them fucking in.
Yeah, it's not quite that bad yet.
Okay. Right.
It's not quite Handmaid's Tale, but it's certainly the groundwork has been laid for that. The way that the law is written now, it's that anybody can sue an abortion provider, not necessarily a provider, but anyone who assists. It's written very vaguely on purpose.
Right.
So you can prosecute the people you want to prosecute and leave the people alone that you don't want to prosecute. Because let's be fucking real, we've said it before and we'll say it again. The Republican Congress people are not going to stop getting abortions.
No.
Rich people are not going to stop getting abortions.
Their mistresses are still going to have access to that abortion pill.
Exactly. They're purposely prosecuting poor people of color and marginalized people.
Right.
People of the global majority.
Or just people who cannot afford to fly out of the state to go get an abortion somewhere else in a state that will allow it.
Well, and Texas is just setting the precedent, right? So there have already been other states. North Carolina, that fucking bitch is right on the heels of this, saying, I'm going to make my state's laws, now that the precedent's been set, I'm going to make my state laws even more restrictive than Texas is.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Now I'm going to say something that's going to maybe come off not the way I intend it, because fuck all of this bullshit. This should never happen. We're going back to fucking the 60s. Like, this is ridiculous. But what confuses me is, I mean, again, 100% matters. This all matters. But when they came out with the abortion pill, that just makes this shit, like, not obsolete to me, but I'm just like, I'll just get the fucking pill. I don't have to go to a provider. I don't have to get a procedure. I just take the fucking pill at home. That shit flushes right out, and I'm good to go. Unless something happens, then I have to go get medical treatment. But at that point, it's not so much an abortion. You just got to figure out what the fuck's going on with my, hemorrhaging or whatever it may be. But you don't have to worry about back alley abortions going super wrong, where women are being pretty much murdered in an alley because this was their only fucking option, which is why the safe, to get rid of abortions just means to get rid of safe abortions, which is super fucked up. But now that there's this pill, and I know that it will be like, it's $1,000 for a pill now when it shouldn't be that much, but because it's black market, or would be in the Republicans,
Texas,
yeah. And it's just, I don't know, I get it, but I'm just like, just mass produce the fucking abortion pill.
Well, that was something that I had written in my notes too. Was like, the people who are making the legislation, they are the people who set themselves up to profit off of shit, no matter what it is.
100%.
So, like, we talked about prison, or we talked about whatever. I'm certain these guys who wrote this law probably have a shit ton of stock in abortionpill.com or whatever, you know what I mean? And it's like, you can't really prosecute somebody for getting a pill mailed to them, potentially from another state. I mean, I'm sure that's against the law, but it's like, we were joking about this yesterday. It's like, weed's legal now, so instead of selling like dime bags of weed, now we sell dime bags of abortion pills because you can't get them legally. You know what I mean? And it's a political power grab more than anything.
Right.
And it's for attention, and it's fucking whatever it's for. But I wanted to read this. I'm not sure if I finished my thought about the $10,000 prosecuting.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Prosecuting, so you can't just turn your neighbor in. You can't just say, like, this person got an abortion and turn them in. It's basically bounty hunting the people who are helping people get abortions. So the way that I'm reading, actually, this article from azcentral.com, and the author is Elvia Diaz. Basically, she lays it out, and she says, what Texas Republican lawmakers did with their law banning abortions after 6 weeks and letting anyone from anywhere file a civil lawsuit against a person who helps a pregnant woman, their reward is $10,000 for every civil case won. And one of the justices of the Supreme Court, her name is Sonia Sotomayor, she put out a statement in dissent of the judgment, which was a 5-4 decision, right? This one conservative justice that Trump appointed switched the balance from, I don't want to say
human rights to fucking conservative bullshit. I mean,
yeah, maybe human rights.
It's human fucking rights.
Anyways, so the
people of my body, my choice, all of a sudden means your body, my choice too.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so anyways, it was a 5-4 decision. Sonia Sotomayor, justice, was pissed, and she put out a statement in dissent, and I really loved her statement. She said, quote, in effect, the Texas legislature has deputized the state citizens as bounty hunters, offering them cash prizes for civilly prosecuting their neighbors' medical procedures. End quote. And I was like, God, that's so fucked up, but that's exactly what happened.
Right.
Or what the law is, what's going to occur because of this law, right?
So would this be, let's say, Charlotte, Charlotte's pregnant. Charlotte doesn't want to be pregnant. Charlotte goes and gets an abortion and tells her neighbor Mandi about it. Mandi wants $10,000, so she... Well, you would sue me or the doctor?
The doctor. I'm not prosecuting individual citizens.
Right. So then that doctor can no longer practice law and then probably go to prison or some bullshit. And then that's one less doctor to perform a sometimes life-saving procedure. Mm-hmm. Got it. Okay,
exactly.
Cool.
Yeah.
Right.
You're policing your neighbor's medical procedures. Right. And let's talk a little bit about, this is not a coincidence that this is happening now, right? We talked about the justices being instated. And then we talked a little bit about the voter suppression laws that came about back in July. So after they've got who they want in the Supreme Court, they've made it incredibly difficult for people of color and minorities to vote. Some of the basically processes that they've put in place to make it harder for people to vote is they've done shit like they have banned drop boxes. They've made it, in some cases, a felony to absentee ballot. They've banned drive-through voting. They banned 24-hour voting, so which helps a lot of people who are working and can't get to the polls and can't get time off, even though you're supposed to get time off from work to go to the polls. It makes it pretty much impossible for young people and working people to get to the polls, and those are the people who they are trying to suppress.
Right, because they would not probably vote for them.
So the thing about the poll watchers is actually pretty fucking scary, because the idea behind a poll watcher is they're supposed to be a nonpartisan person, right? They're not a Democrat, they're not a Republican. They're just there to make sure that everything goes accurately. And so obviously in this past election, actually that's something I should have added to the list, the Republicans have been crying voter fraud from the rooftops, right? Which everybody knows voter fraud is not, statistically, it's a very, very small percentage, and it's not enough to sway a vote, the amount of voter fraud that happens. But they're crying it from the rooftops, right, in order to enact some of these fucking crazy voter suppression laws to get people scared and thinking, oh, well, I should have to, have my driver's license to vote, and I should have to put down a special code, and I should have to, jump through all these hoops. And essentially, these things are real things that you have to do in Texas now, and they're making it so that it's very easy to make a mistake. And then, back to these poll watchers. Basically, what these people are doing, they're claiming to be nonpartisan, but they're intimidating voters at the polls. And it used to be the election officials would see this happening and they could get rid of them, right? And they could say, hey, you can't do that. You're out of here. Now it makes it a felony to do that without giving them a warning first. So giving them time for everybody to come and do that once and then put in a new poll watcher to intimidate people at the polls. Yeah, exactly. Oh, it gets worse than that.
I don't want to live on this planet anymore.
The legislation also empowers poll watchers to sue and seek court orders against election officials who get in their way. And the whole thing about being warned, the Texas branch of the American Civil Liberties Union calls this a one-time get-out-of-jail-free card for voter intimidation. Which is exactly what it is.
I'm so disturbed as how not everybody's super fucking pissed off. And seeing it for what it is, this isn't good.
Yeah, no, it's not good. And it's been not good for
a while.
Years and years, Well, I read something somewhere, too, that when it comes to conservative voters, there's conservative social voters and there's conservative economic voters.
Right.
So there's very few that are both. Well, not very few, but there's not as many as you would think that are both. Well, actually, let me get into this because I have another thing I wanted another article I wanted to cite that basically talks about how this one guy's opinion thinks that this whole thing is going to backfire on Texas, which I thought was super interesting.
Right.
But yeah, so basically what they're doing is they're going after the social voters, and those are the people who are like, I want my guns and I want my
MAGA.
Pro-life and, just all about the social issues. And, I don't want to get vaccine, which is so stupid that's a fucking political issue. But whatever, have fun in the hospital. And then the economic voters are the majority of Republicans who just don't want the money to be spent on people. They don't want to pay taxes. They don't want to pay high taxes. They want to, they're not interested in social
They don't care
participation.
If Joe Smo down the street doesn't have the rights that should be afforded.
Or money to, live. He's just sucking off welfare, that kind of thing. There's also, it's funny to me, too, that Republicans, like our mother, right, claim to be small government. Like, they don't want government involved in their lives. They don't want to pay taxes. They don't want government. But at the same time, those are the people who are saying, like, you know, I should be able to police my neighbor's medical procedures.
Right.
You know, the government should, I don't know. It's a lot of big government in everybody's business when it comes down to all these social.
Yeah, that's worse than fucking communism, or it's like 1984. We're fucking falling into 1984, and it's fucking terrifying.
Mm-hmm. Let's see, before I move on, let me see if I missed anything from Texas about the voter suppression laws. Oh, let's see.
It's just really
they tested them out before they passed them into law. They tested these voter suppression tactics out in the most racially diverse county that was Democratic leaning, which is Harris County, and it worked. The county says 140,000 people voted in its drive-through in 24-hour locations in the 2020 election, and the majority of those people didn't vote at all because that option wasn't available to them.
God, that's fucked up.
Right? So they see it works, so they make it into law. The Republicans were arguing that these procedures were used during a once-in-a-century pandemic and shouldn't be regular features of voting in the state.
But why?
Exactly. I think you know why.
I mean, like, what is their reason for why? Like, how is this passed into law? How is that okay, and why? It doesn't make, because we don't want them to vote at their leisure? Like, fuck you.
Well, here, let me tell you a little bit about the hurdles to mail-in voting.
God,
so,
Mandi.
you gotta know, right? The internet's gotta know.
Right. No, I know. I'm just very sad by the whole thing.
They probably already do, but just in case, maybe you didn't. Maybe you're listening.
I didn't know.
Maybe you're listening from France, and you're like, what the fuck is going on with Texas?
The United States is fucked up right now.
Yeah. So it used to be in Texas that you could vote by mail if you were 65 and older, if you were going to be out of state during the election, or if you were disabled. But then Trump did his whole thing about objecting to mail-in voting through his failed re-election campaign, and Republicans in conservative states turned against the method, and everywhere they've been eager to tighten the regulations on it. This newish from the summer Texas bill requires mail-in voters to include their identification numbers on their envelopes and their applications that have to match the data on their voter registration. They have to include their driver's license number. If they don't have a driver's license, they have to include the last four digits on their social security number. The opponents are saying that it's creating another opportunity for voters to make minor mistakes and that their votes won't be counted.
I'd like to know how it will backfire. Is there hope?
Hold on, let's make sure we ticked all the boxes for voter suppression. Oh, here we go. So this bill, this Texas voter suppression bill, is what I'm calling it. I'm sure it has another name. Creates or expands several criminal violations involving elections, some of which are broadly defined and could ensnare voters or those who help them. So they're basically targeting get out and vote, rock the vote, help people vote campaigns,
right.
Essentially.
Bring attention, there's a word for it, I can't think of what it is.
So Republicans are saying these laws are necessary to prevent voter fraud or improper influence on voters, like they're fucking poll watchers. But we're talking about something else now.
We don't want people informed, so God forbid you inform some people.
Yeah. Democrats obviously say voter fraud's exceedingly rare. The state's Republican Attorney General dedicated millions of dollars to voter fraud investigations since last year, but has only turned up a handful of cases in a state where more than 11 million people voted in November. Right. A handful of cases. And how many million, just millions of dollars spent on trying to prove fraud that doesn't exist, right?
Because God forbid you give that to a fucking food shelter or some shit.
So listen to this. So the bills expand an existing mandate that people who help voters with mail ballots provide information on the envelope attesting to their role. So under these new laws, anyone who helps a voter fill out a ballot must also submit their signature, their name, their address, and the relationship and the details of whether they were paid by a campaign or political committee. And if they fail to do that, they can be prosecuted. And however, the bills do remove exemptions from prosecution for caregivers who are not family living in this, but you have to live in the same house and say that you're a caregiver.
If you're Republican.
If you're Republican.
then it's okay. But
and hold on, I'm
not
done.
You're a social worker. Fuck you.
The bills also create new crime around being compensated to collect filled out and sealed ballots from voters. So the ACLU complains that this provision is vague and could criminalize routine, get out and vote operations, which is what I was talking about.
We control the House. We control the Senate. what the fuck are we doing right now?
Well, it turns out it's really important for people to be paying attention to their local elections. And this is, like I said, the groundwork has been laid for a long time for this to happen. Because of these laws, too, this is just a little side story. There's a Texas woman who was sentenced to 5 years in prison for voting while she was on parole because she didn't know it was illegal to vote while she was on parole.
Fuck.
Yeah. I'm sure she did not vote Republican.
She doesn't get a get out of jail free for one time thing?
Nope, she doesn't get it. All right, do you want to hear the other side of the coin, the flip side of the coin?
Because I'm fucking depressed. It's the most depressing episode we've ever done.
I know, it's awful, but it's important to realize and to pay attention, right? Because it's not, Texas is the first state, right? Everybody else is going to start following suit. However, so I read this article from The Atlantic, written by David Frum, and the title is, Texas Republicans Got What They Wanted and They Might Regret It.
Got it.
Okay. And I thought this was really interesting perspective. So basically, essentially, like, it starts out with talking about how Republicans have supported abortion rights for the past 40 years. Reagan supported it. Bush supported it. Ford supported it, right?
Really?
Yep.
I find that hard to believe.
Yeah, no. It's just been recently in the past, decade or so.
Well, started with W, didn't it? It was the downfall of fucking society.
Here, I'll just read it for you. It says, over the 4 decades since 1980, however, the Republican Party has coalesced around a more radical brand of abortion politics. This week, the Republican-appointed majority on the U.S. Supreme Court allowed the state of Texas to impose the most restrictive abortion law since Roe v. Wade constitutionalized abortion rights in 1973. So just to paraphrase it, it's obviously like people are pissed off about it. Not, Texas women are being surveilled and policed by the law. Their medical procedures are. And the Supreme Court's permission to Texas Republicans to proceed with these laws should be welcomed, including by those who support abortion rights, as the crucial step toward a resolution of a half-century-long culture war. This is this guy's perspective. He's like, don't freak out. Like, we actually need this to happen, because before this, opposition to abortion offered Republican politicians a lucrative, no-risk political option, right? So they could use pro-life rhetoric to win support from socially conservative voters,
right.
The gun people like our mom, the abortion people.
Right.
So they could win support from those who disliked the Republican economic policy. They need social programs.
Well, I guess that's true.
They need money. They need roads. They need,
right.
health care, right? So,
but they'll vote against themselves because abortion.
Well,
right.
Possibly, but maybe not, right? They're counting on these less socially conservative voters who counted on the courts to protect the abortion rights for them, essentially is the argument this guy's making. He says, verbatim, they could use pro-life rhetoric to win support from socially conservative voters who disliked Republican economic policy and pay little price for it, with less socially conservative voters who counted on the courts to protect abortion rights for them. So, Republicans get abortions too.
100%. Especially when it's their mistress.
Yeah, and so they want the economic policy, but they're counting on the court to protect their right to have an abortion.
Right.
And so now, Texas just doubled down on that, and they're like, you know what, fuck you. It's this guy's perspective that's going to turn around and bite them in the ass when it comes down to the next vote.
I hope so, but again, these are people with money, so they can still get their abortions when poor people cannot.
Yeah, but not all of Republicans have money. You know what I mean? I think the point that this guy's trying to make is that...
Oh, I'm talking about the lawmakers.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm not talking about the lawmakers. I'm talking about regular people, regular
right.
Republican voters.
Right.
Who want the economic policies of Republicans. They don't want to pay high taxes.
Right.
But they also want to be able to get abortions. And
right.
they have felt comfortable supporting Republican lawmakers and legislation because they can count on the courts to
uphold the
law.
Yeah.
Right? And so now the court's not upholding the law.
Right.
Because it's been stacked with
bullshit.
Particular people.
Rapists and fucking...
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
So, it's this guy's perspective that, like, those people who were voting Republican just because of the economic policies, they're not going to vote Republican anymore. They're gonna vote to get their healthcare rights back, right?
Or more, hopefully, maybe we'll have 3-party system. That'd be great.
Well, maybe. He also, this is what I thought was kind of cool, was he also really likened this to the Prohibition back in the 20s.
Right.
And it was kind of the same idea, right? Not quite as, it wasn't a medical procedure, so it wasn't quite as, invasive or intense as getting an abortion, or as heated of a debate. But it was a pretty heated debate back in the day. So for almost 70 years, from the 1850s to the 1920s, Americans battled passionately, which I didn't realize it was a 70-year battle.
Wait, it was that long?
Mm-hmm. From the 1850s to the 1920s, they were battling inconclusively on how to regulate booze.
Okay.
Right? And the debate ended after Prohibitionists won in their seemingly, overwhelming victory. So they enacted the 18th Amendment in 1919, and for 12 years, metropolitan America, city folk, lived under rules imposed by country folk, right? So even back then, it was the same situation as we got going on now. It's the people who don't like people live out in the country and try to
dictate how other people fucking live their goddamn lives.
Exactly. So this whole prohibition experiment totally didn't work. Everything collapsed. Alcohol prohibition failed, right? In practice and in politics.
We'll also say, though, alcohol, everybody likes to party, have a good time. It's not like you're going to have abortion parties. You know what I'm saying?
That's true. Yeah, like I said, it's not a perfect analogy, but just the fact that it's like a hotly contested debate of something,
an abortion party
for something that isn't really any of your fucking business,
right?
You know what I mean,
right?
So
my party would be full of steel magnolias, terms of endearment, ice cream.
Listen, this guy says the author of this article says he's already seen compelling evidence that Texas Republicans understand how detested their new abortion law will soon be. And it's not only detested by people in this big city, it's not only like New York and LA, it's Houston, it's Dallas, San Antonio, Austin. There's a lot of big cities in Texas.
Right.
You know what I mean? And they've basically, he goes on to talk about the voter suppression laws, which we already talked about. But if it basically, I really like that he wrote this. It's as if they could foresee what Texans would do if all of them that were qualified to vote could vote. And he actually does go on to say, the Texas voting law only impedes voting. It doesn't prevent it. So, there's still ways to get people out and vote. It just makes it a lot harder to do it.
God, I hate fucking people. Especially hate fucking Texas. I like El Paso. And Austin was pretty great. San Antonio was whatever. Fucking Texas.
Yeah. Well, he sums up this article by just saying, the moral of the story would seem to be that Republicans do best when the electorate is satisfied and quiet. They face disaster when the electorate is mobilized and angry. So Texas Republicans have just bet their political future in a rapidly diversifying and urbanizing state on a gambit. So,
I mean, I could see it. I fucking, fingers crossed, I have no faith in humanity anymore. It's gone. It's done.
Yeah, it's pretty horrible, and it's pretty horrible to see the big picture. Our whole year and some odd months of podcasting has been a lot of political talk, right? We've been paying attention. We're pissed off about shit like this.
Constantly angry.
Constantly angry about politics, and this is fucking why.
Right.
You know what I mean? You can't just, you have to pay attention to things like this.
And I know people who, it doesn't affect them, so they don't care. It's listen, I'm a 38-year-old woman who lives in Southern California. I don't have to worry about having to get an abortion. Frankly, I'm not saying I'm not in childbearing years, but I'm getting out. I'm near the end of my childbearing years. Usually when you get knocked up, you're much younger. Mm-hmm. So it's clearly I know how to not get pregnant, so I don't need to have an abortion. Mm-hmm. But if I needed one, I can get one in my state. Also, if I couldn't get it in my state, I have enough money to fly somewhere else. So none of this shit affects me in the slightest, personally. Now, how it does fucking affect me is I'm surrounded by fucking people. And I live in a country that has a lot of fucking people in it. And I care about other people. I have empathy for other people. Everyone, I know anybody who's listening to this show has empathy for other people. So I don't know. I'm oh, you need to have empathy. You clearly do. Or you would have turned this shit off long ago. But I don't know. I just want to punch people in their fucking faces.
I just want you to have empathy so I can punch people in their goddamn fucking faces. God. Yeah.
Can we talk about sovereign citizens for a minute?
No, we can't.
No, we can, because I have something to talk about.
All right.
So, I have been made to light. Something has been made to light to me.
New shit has come to light.
New shit has come to light, man. I love my friend Christine. She's fucking rad. She's a Republican and a Trump supporter till the day is long, but we just like each other a lot, so it's great. We were just in Austin together for a hair show, and she was supposed to be going back to Chicago to then go to Wisconsin or Missouri or wherever it is that she lives. Sorry, I get them confused. If you're listening, which I don't think you are, but that's okay.
We have listeners from Wisconsin.
Oh, nice. Well, I just don't think Christine, unless our listener is Christine, in which case,
hey girl.
Hey girl, hey. Anyway, so I was getting on a flight to LAX, and she was going off to go board her flight to Chicago, and she runs back as I'm in line. She goes, girl, they just canceled my flight. And I'm like, you get on this flight right now. And she did. I didn't think she'd do it. I had my headphones in. I was looking down at my phone. I just hear, Charlotte? And I look up and I'm like, Christine, you made it. It was rad. So, the people sitting next to me, I was like, do you mind? Like, can I go sit with my friend? Like, yeah, please get the fuck out of here. Whatever. So, and our flight was so empty. So we sat down, we started talking. And we're laughing and having a good time. And actually the lady in front of us was like, can you please be quiet? And honestly, like, we're not talking any louder than you and I are talking right now, but we are talking. And it is an airplane. She wanted to go to sleep. We're like, fuck this, bitch. So we go to the seat behind us, because that's how empty the flight was. There's a whole other row behind us that was empty. So we go and
like,
we
she
talk.
couldn't move?
Right, fucking bitch. Also, fuck you, I paid for the seat. I can talk. I'm not screaming. I'm not cackling. Don't get me wrong, when I drink, I can cackle. But I wasn't that drunk
You're not punching any airline attendants in the face.
Right. So, anyways, me and Christine are talking, and she starts talking to me about being a sovereign citizen. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? She's like, no, like, I'm just trying to, release my passport and just, not be a citizen of the United States. I'm like, what? Like, and frankly, I was a little too drunk to understand what she was trying to say to me. And she sent me a bunch of links I didn't watch. But, like, essentially, you still live in the United States. You still benefit from protection of the United States. But you don't have to, like, pay sales tax? I don't really know. You don't have to have a driver's license.
That sounds like some shit that's going around in the QAnon circles.
It's 100%.
Didn't Mom say that same thing?
So Mom's the same thing. Mom wants to be a sovereign citizen, too. It just doesn't make any fucking sense. So my point of telling the story, since I don't know a whole lot about it and did no research, per usual, I just want to say this. When I was in Greece a couple years ago, we went to go rent quads. I am not a citizen of Greece. I don't have a Greek driver's license. But without my California driver's license, I could not rent a quad because they need to know that I have some sort of fucking driver's license. So for those who are like, I don't need a driver's license, I'm a sovereign citizen, that shit makes no goddamn sense. Because if I need a fucking California driver's license in Greece, you need one fucking here too.
Any of you QAnon listeners out there, take note.
Right? Or, email fhebadmormons@gmail.com and tell me how I'm wrong. I'd love to hear about it. Or even better, go comment on some of our social media. I love the engagement.
Should we take a break?
Yeah,
hear a word from our sponsors.
That wasn't very cool shit, though, Mandy.
I know it wasn't.
Cool shit.
I scratched out Twitter. I scratched out cool shit. I scratched out Mormon Corner because I knew we had a lot to talk about.
All right. Word from our sponsors. Take it away, Courtney.
And we came back
for you
to tell you stories.
So I'm going to tell you a story about my 25th birthday. So I decided, I'm turning 25 years old, getting old as shit. I should go to the Caribbean. No one wants to go with me, oddly enough, or no one could afford to go with me, which is bullshit. We don't have children. You all could have afforded it. But no, I wanted to go. My friend Tien lived out in the Caribbean, in St. John's. And so I'm like, I'm coming out to visit you. And I was like, and I'm staying for 2 weeks. Because though I was old as shit, I wasn't old enough to know that you don't stay at someone's house for longer than 4 days. Right?
Cardinal rule.
Cardinal rule. Yeah, what is it? Seafood, in-house guests, 3 days, 4 tops, you know? So I stayed for 2 weeks. So I flew in, she picks me up from the ferry or whatever, and like, because, you know, you have to fly to St. Thomas, and then you have to take a ferry over to St. John. So she meets me over off the ferry, and she proceeds to tell, we go out for some drinks, and she's like, I got you a job. I'm like, what? Like, I'm on vacation. She's like, I know how much you love money. And I'm like, and mind you, I also haven't seen Tien since I was like 19 either. Like maybe 20-ish, like was the last time we hung out, but like hung out all the time, probably 19. This has been like 6 years. And it's true, I love money, I just do. But she's just like, I know how much you love money, and I couldn't really take any time off while you're here. So I figured you could work. And I was like, all right, well, what's the job? She's like, oh, you're a house painter. And I'm like, the fuck? So she's like, yeah, they pay like $25 an hour. It's going to be rad. Like, you know, you'll work all day, and then we'll go drink at night, and then we'll have the weekends. And I'm like, yeah, fuck, why not? I mean, I don't really have anything else to do. And I honestly did not know how small this goddamn island was. There's not a whole lot to do in 2 weeks. So I show up like 6 in the morning. I'm like, I'm on goddamn vacation. And he's like, okay, I'm going to have you be doing the very so it's not outdoor painting, it's indoor interior painting. So I'm doing all the fine lines with like tape and shit. Not an easy fucking job. And like, I think you're supposed to wait for it to dry. I don't know. I wasn't really told what to do very well. And I was getting paid $10 an hour. And I'm like, okay, I guess. I worked for 9 goddamn hours. And like, it wasn't bad. What I did was good because I would go back over it again. I'd retape it, I'd repaint it, I'd repeel it, and then it would fuck up because you're supposed to wait for it to fucking dry. Mm-hmm. They didn't tell me that. Also, I don't know if they even knew that, or they should have said something. And then the girl who had the roller, you know, like you're supposed to roll W's into the wall or whatever, $25 an hour. Makes no fucking sense. And I had to listen to fucking Aerosmith all day long, which is probably actually why I hate Aerosmith. I don't think I had like a hatred for Aerosmith until this day, so it's actually all coming together now.
Yeah, I feel like we've uncovered something deep.
Right? And then I put on Otis Redding, which they were not happy about, and we listened to that for a long time too, so fuck you guys. Otis Redding rules! Anyways, so by the end of the night, and it's dark, like, again, it was a 9-hour day, no real lunch break or anything like that. He pays me my $90 in cash. I'm like, sweet, thanks for the $90, bro.
American.
St. John is American currency, so if you go to like the European British Islands, yeah, then I think you'd go to the pound, but the
Pound Town.
I was thinking Snoop Dogg.
The dog pound.
The dog pound. But anyways, but he proceeds to tell me, well, you're not very good. And I'm like, yeah, I know. I can't afford to pay you $10 an hour because you're not going fast enough. I can pay you $8 an hour. Now, I'm older, a little bit wiser now. Now, I would hope, and who knows when you're put in a position what you would say or do. I would hope that I would say, I appreciate it, but I am on vacation, so I think I'll just pass. Thank you for this opportunity, but no. Instead, I said, oh, okay, no problem, because I don't like confrontation. And then I go out to go drink. So me and Tien go out for our cocktails, and we meet up with her ex-boyfriend John, who I'm also was good friends with, and we're talking about it. And I was like, I don't want to go back to work tomorrow. Like, one, it's really early in the morning. Like, I don't even start work until 10 at my own job, and to be there at 6 is really early. And he's only gonna pay me $8 an hour. I make $12 an hour at the co-op. Like, and that's when it like clicked. I was like, wait a second. I already took a $2 pay cut. And mind you, I have really good benefits at the co-op. I'm getting paid to be on vacation. So why am I working for $8? And that shit doesn't make any sense. I was like, of course I'm not going back to work. I'm on vacation. I'm being paid to be on vacation, and I'm not working for $8 an hour. Like, this is stupid. Mm-hmm. And so I didn't show back. And John said, he's like, well, typical Islander, you'll fit right in. You get paid for a day's work, you go drink it away, and you don't show up for work the next day. Yep. That's me.
That is island style. I think that's every island.
I love living island style. It's great.
Yeah, it is great. My story actually takes place in the tropics as well.
Ooh.
There's actually we actually did a lot of really fun shit. So I went down to Costa Rica with some of my friends in 2005. I remember it was 2005 because I had bought a house. Courtney and I were buying an apartment, and we had a mortgage broker working on it for us, and our offer was accepted or whatever, but we had to sign it right then and there and send it back. So we got this paperwork faxed to us at this like old dot matrix fax machine in the jungle in like a cardboard hut. Basically sign the paperwork and send it back. So that's how I remember it was 2005. But basically there was a lot of really fun shit. I could go on and tell you lots of stories of all the cool shit that we did while we were there, but I just wanted to tell you one little part since this podcast is running a little long and we're running out of time. First of all, some of the best coffee I've ever had. Well, this was before I had gone to Hawaii, which is, creme de la creme of coffee. But at the time, it was the best coffee I'd ever tasted. And our first little couple days of vacation, we went down to the Caribbean side of Costa Rica, and we stayed at this hostel, which was this super hippie, dippy, like tree house kind of situation with a bunch of young travelers from all over the world, which you wouldn't think is my jam, but we ended up having a lot of fun.
Oh, I'm sorry. Drum Circle Mandi didn't have a good time in a commune? Go on.
This was 2005. I was out of my drum circle phase by then. But there was a lot of drugs at this commune.
There it is. That's why she had a good time. It's all coming together now.
And I don't know if you're familiar with the Central America...
Cocaine.
Exactly. That's where the cocaine grows, and that's where the cocaine's made. And that's where I had the best cocaine I've ever had in my entire life, to the point where I was hallucinating.
That's fucked up.
Yeah, like nothing super crazy, but like I remember standing out on the balcony of our treehouse.
Like trails hallucinating, or like actually seeing shit that wasn't there?
No, seeing shit that wasn't there. Like we're standing out on the balcony of our little treehouse, and I'm looking at what I think is a cloud, and I'm like, God, that cloud hasn't moved. Hasn't moved for so long. It's
Courtney's
a tree.
Like, it's me.
No, it's a tree. It's a big tree. But like I was going off, like you do when you're high on cocaine, just mile a minute talking.
Right.
Couldn't believe how long that cloud had been staying there, and I was like, oh my God. And when it hit me that I'd been staring at a tree talking about a cloud for like probably 25 minutes,
no one listening to you.
Yeah, I was like, I should stop doing this much cocaine. But it was really pure. It was like 100% pure cocaine. It was nothing like you would get here or I'd ever gotten before or since, to be perfectly honest with you. So we had bought some cocaine from like some of the other travelers that were staying there or whatever. And then the next morning or a couple days later, it's time for us to leave and go on to our next stop. So we're headed from the Caribbean side over to the Pacific side. And we'd rented a car as well. Okay. So there's 4 of us, driving a car down in Central America. Spoiler alert.
I'm scared for you.
I know. 2005. So we don't realize how close we are to Panama.
Oh, God.
We're like right on the border of Panama. This place was called Rockin' Jay's, if anybody wants to look up how close we were to the border of Panama.
Rockin' Jay's?
Mm-hmm. So we get on the road and...
Sounds like a Sammy Hagar resort.
No, it's not. It's not a resort at all. It's like a legit treehouse, particle board treehouse.
Excellent.
Situation. So we get on the road and we're like, realize we have gone the wrong way and we need to turn around. And what we don't realize is that we have crossed the border into Panama with a bunch of cocaine. And we have to get back across the border to Costa Rica. Yeah, I know. Charlotte, listeners, if you could see the look on Charlotte's face right now.
It's disappointment
and
concern, disdain. And what the fuck is wrong with you, Mandi?
It was, you couldn't even tell you were crossing a border. You're out in the middle.
There was no big sign that said, welcome to the Panama.
No, it's like you're out in a jungle. I don't even know if the road was paved. It seems like it wasn't.
Well, then how would you know if you didn't have to go through customs again to go back?
Well, you did have to go through customs to go back. But you didn't have to go through anything to get from Costa Rica to Panama. Mm-hmm. But when you wanted to go from Panama to Costa Rica, when we're like, oh shit, we went the wrong way, we need to turn around, we were greeted by several men with machine guns and dogs stopping the car.
Oh, good! Dogs!
And we're like, oh no. Well, we didn't have a ton of cocaine. Like, it was obviously just personal use, but you never know how that goes in other countries. Yeah.
I've seen, what's that movie with Clara Danes?
And Joaquin Phoenix?
The fucking palace, whatever, fucking Thailand shit.
Anyways, we've all seen the movies.
We've all seen all of the movies.
So we're like, oh, fuck. And I'm the only one who speaks even a little bit of Spanish. And my Spanish is rusty now, but back then, it's like, it's amazing what you can do when you're forced to remember Spanish to not go to prison. And so it was, I was just all smiles and, soy de los Estados Unidos. Like, not really that cheesy, but I was being purposefully cheesy. Like, I'm a tourist, and just my most Americanized Spanish
please help me
accent. And, they're like all, serious, like, pasaporte, like, give me your passport or whatever. And I was like, oh yeah, passports, guys, passports, and smiling, and here you go, just trying to just lay it on thick. And then
which probably made you seem so much more obvious.
No, they all started like relaxing and smiling because it was like 3 girls and a guy,
right?
So we were all kind of like flirting. It was Andrea, Courtney,
like, oh, muy, well, not bonito,
guapo.
It
was me, Courtney, and Andrea, and my friend Val. Okay. And I think Val was driving, so the cop was on my side, on the passenger side, so I was collecting everyone's passports and just flirting, Right. And so they were, like, smiling and warming up, and we were just, like, we basically just, it was the performance of a lifetime. And, they looked at the registration or whatever, saw that it was a rental car. We were telling them that we were trying to go over to the Pacific side, I forget the name of the, Malpais, I think, was the name of the town. But sure enough, it was just like, we just went the wrong way, and they'd let us go without searching or looking or doing anything. Thank fucking Lord.
Thanks, dogs, for not barking.
Exactly. Dogs, so, it's a short story, but a funny one.
It's funny. I'm terrified. It's hilarious.
So if you're gonna,
I guess you're here. So
if you're gonna do drugs in other countries, do the drugs.
Do them in all. That country.
Do them all.
Just do them all. Just do all the drugs. You'll be fine. And if not, you can email us at bgbadmormons@gmail.com. I just walked past a dog in Austin, and I was just like, it was a cute little puppy. And then you're like, wait, you're not allowed to pet the dog, Charlotte. He goes like, I just want to love you.
Yeah, those are working dogs. Oh, I wanted to say this right at the top, and I forgot. Shout out to our friends in New Orleans.
Yeah,
they just got hit by a Category 4 hurricane, and luckily New Orleans actually, after Katrina, they fortified the levees, so the levees held, so they didn't.
And Biden immediately put FEMA out there. So whereas they after Katrina was fucked for months,
years still fucked.
Well, no, they're still fucked. But George W. Bush didn't fucking send FEMA for days, I think. And it was just like, fuck you. Like,
well, as of this recording, I think that was 3 days ago that it hit. They can't get gas. They're getting water dropped in. Most people are without power. Some of the like downtown New Orleans businesses and stuff have gotten power back, but New Orleans wasn't even the hardest hit. I don't want to even try to pronounce the name of the town because those towns in the south, I'll butcher it. But there's a town near New Orleans in Louisiana that's really, really got damaged.
Oh shit!
And they're forecasting that I think that it's like 100,000 people are without power,
displaced,
and they're not going to be able to get power for
so they still have their
a month.
Dwellings. They're just
not a lot.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of it got flattened.
Fuck.
And it was kind of the hub for the oil rigs. So they would pipe the oil into this town, and then that's where it would start making its way out to wherever. Yeah, so it's pretty devastating what's going on there. So we're thinking about you guys. Shout out. Hope you guys are doing okay. We got a lot of friends in New Orleans.
Yeah.
And we hope you guys are good.
No, not thoughts and prayers. Booze and
booze and water. And air conditioning.
Booze, water, and air conditioning. Heavy metal.
Oh, one more thing, too, which... I don't even know if it's really worth mentioning, but I think it's kind of funny. Joe Rogan, the actually legitimately internet famous podcast host, he has like 11 million listeners every time he records, and he's been very flippant about like, oh, you don't need COVID vaccination, just like, he's just kind of a douchebag, to be perfectly honest, and everybody loves him. I don't get it.
I don't get it at all.
But he came down with COVID.
Oh, no.
And he's been promoting that horse dewormer to people, which is like, you know what? Fine. If you want to be an idiot and take horse dewormer for your COVID, for your virus, go right the fuck ahead. But you have a responsibility when you have 11 million people hanging on every word you say to not pretend that you fucking know shit about shit, and people are going to die because of your recommendation for them to take veterinary supplies.
I mean, we have one listener, and we preference everything. We don't know shit about quantum physics, but we're going to try and talk about it.
Right. These are just opinions. And he probably he does actually say that shit too, but it's, I don't know. It's different. It's irresponsible. Right. The guy is just a douchebag, and I don't like him. I never liked him. And I
did see him at the Irvine Improv Theater once. Somebody was going, and they said, "Oh, ticket, you want to go?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure, whatever." Joe Rogan. I knew him from the Fear Factor, whatever. And anybody who knows me knows I love inappropriate jokes. They make me laugh, and I mean, it depends on how inappropriate. But there's some pretty fucked up jokes that I will laugh at. Now, his jokes were inappropriate, but they were fucking funny. And, it was just okay, so you're just a sexist asshole then? And again, a lot of my jokes are sexist that I think are inappropriate and hilarious, but they're actually, I'm not going to tell you any of them because I will go to jail, internet jail, forever.
Well, now we're going to need to know the jokes. I'm going to tell your joke.
Do it. You could be internet canceled.
If you'd like us to be internet canceled, why don't you head on over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 1-star review. Tell us why we should be canceled.
Yeah, don't just give us a review and slink off into the night.
You little trumper. You little QAnoner. Speaking of QAnon, we have a new design up on our merch website at TeePublic. You can get the link in our link tree, which is in all of our social medias. It's called QAnon Salty Tears /
That's pretty great.
Something about being a salty bitch. Anyways, it's funny. You should check it out if you haven't seen it yet.
Do we have that linked to our website where we have other merch?
We do.
FHEBadMormons.com.
Mm-hmm. Oh, we should also start thinking about being excellent to each other, which in my mind is just starting to lay our groundwork now and planning to help each other get to Canada in the new world.
So Gilead takes over.
Start thinking about that now, people. We need to build the underground tunnel.
Live in goddamn Canada. It's cold up there.
And shout out one more time to our patrons.
Thank you so much.
Your generous donations keep us in wine and electricity.
Yes.
We love you so much.
Head on over to YouTube. Like, subscribe, comment, boost my algorithm.
Tell your friends. We have 70 YouTube subscribers now.
Ooh.
Right? We're almost 100. We're almost double.
What am I going to do at 100? Doesn't matter because I won't remember.
And, one last shout out to one of our special internet friends. She sent me...
My face just lit up.
She sent me a link to a social media account, which I just posted on our story. It turns out our idea for having a rage-filled anti-Christopher Columbus Day is already a thing. And the account is called Decolonize Myself, and it is promoting Indigenous Peoples' Day of Rage, Sunday, October 10th.
I like it.
So keep an eye out for that in case, just celebrating Indigenous Peoples is not enough. We want to rage against Christopher Columbus. That's the day to do it. Well,
I'm into it.
Do it always, but especially part of that day.
Fucking douche. All right.
And with that,
later.
We'll call that a podcast.